Ms. Jennifer, go ahead. Okay, there we go. All right, we got it. All right, we got audio here. Go ahead and say something real quick.
Happy birthday.
All right, go ahead. You're the
Good?
Greetings, Friendship West family, and those who are like family, and all of you who serve and support your communities, not only in the city of Dallas, but across this country. At Friendship West, under the leadership of our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Frederick Haynes III, we believe in economic justice, and whether that is advocating for just lending practices, or whether it's running our Black-owned credit union, or whether it is supporting our Black-owned businesses right here in the city of Dallas under the leadership of Haynes, we believe in making sure that we support our Black-owned businesses here in the city, whether they have a storefront or whether they are online. We want to do all we can to make sure that you are aware of who they are, where they are, so that we can spend our dollars in our community. And you may be aware this is the 100th commemoration of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And at Friendship West, we have 3 phases in which we have chosen to commemorate our ancestors who were there in Tulsa in the Greenwood District. First phase was on June 2nd. We held a Sankofa moment where we remembered our ancestors, what they built, what they were able to do with grit, determination, faith, their innovation, and their creativity to create a Black Wall Street that rivaled not only other Black communities, but any community in the United States. And that was known as Black Wall Street. And then phase 2, Haynes gave leadership, who gives leadership to our West Wall Street, where we support small business owners. We had that during our church anniversary, and people really came out from the community and supported our Black-owned businesses. And so here is phase 3, where we want to implement what does it mean to spend the last 100 days of this year commemorating the 100 Race Massacre. What does it mean for us to take the last 100 days and to support Black-owned businesses wherever they may be, whether they're online, whether they have a storefront? We want us to wake up every day in whatever good or service you need. Think, is there a Black-owned business that I can support and turn my dollars over? Did you know that as a people, we have $1.3 trillion buying power in this country? However, it is estimated that less than 3% of that circulates back in our communities. And at Friendship West, we want to change that, and we want to challenge you to join us to make sure that we can begin to turn our dollar over in our community to create a future, a just future for generations to come. Come with me now to a small business owner that we love and support right here in Oak Cliff, who not only feeds your mind, but also feeds your body. And not only at Sankofa can you get amazing food, fresh food, well-made food, and healthy food for your body. With a name like Sankofa, you know they also come with a wealth of knowledge and books that you can purchase that can also feed your soul. So we're so appreciative of this Black-owned business right here in Oak Cliff, Texas that we support, and we encourage you to support as well. We'll be back at a later date to highlight Sankofa and many other businesses so that you can know more about them, how to find them, and how to support them. So here's what we're asking you to do. For the last 100 days of this year, starting on September 23rd, we're asking you to make sure that you turn your dollar over in the Black community. And so here's how you can be involved in what we're doing at Friendship West. Go to Friendship West social justice page on Facebook. Search for 100 Commemoration Tulsa Race Massacre 100 Days of Buying Black group. Join that group. We'll have updates every week. We'll have ways in which you can make sure you're supporting Black-owned businesses, as well as ways for you to share businesses that you think we ought to highlight so people can support. Also, make sure you're following Friendship West on all of our social media platforms. We'll have information there as well. So we look forward to you joining us. Go there today. Join the group so you can be informed. We look forward to seeing you in that group, interacting with that group, and let's do what we can to make sure our buying power first goes to our business so we can supply what we need in our communities, whether it's a good or a service, and let's leave a future for generations to come and those we can hire when they come out of college. Our kids need a place to work when they come out of college, and we can provide that if we were to continue to do what our ancestors have already done in Black Wall Street. Let's make Black Wall Street great again.
Good evening, Friendship West. We do thank and praise God. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice. Be glad in it. We do thank and praise God for your presence on tonight as we are in for a wonderful, engaging conversation between our senior pastor and Jennifer Jones Austin concerning God in the ghetto. So I'm just going to open with a brief word of prayer. We got a couple of updates for you, and then we will be back with Pastor Haynes and Jennifer Jones Austin to share with us on Theology Matters. Shall we pray? God, we do bless you and thank you, and we give you glory for the gift of this day. We thank you for this time in which we can think through and think about the God who loved us enough in the person of Jesus Christ that Jesus would come to those who are marginalized, ostracized, and found themselves on the outskirts, but yet because of grace and mercy and Jesus' transformative power, we now have life and have it more abundantly. So we pray tonight, oh God, as there is dialogue and engagement, that someone still hears your voice and is reminded of how deep and how strong your love is for them. We look forward to that which you are going to share with us on tonight, oh Lord. Open our hearts and our minds as we prepare to hear from you on this evening. We have a few updates, and then we'll be back with Pastor Haynes and Jennifer Jones Austin.
Hey, what's up, fabulous family of faith? Did you know you can make charitable donations to your church while you shop on Amazon? That's right. Amazon Smile is a way that you can support Friendship West every time you shop with Amazon. You'll find the same amazing Amazon you know and love with the added bonus that Amazon Smile would donate a portion of the eligible purchase price to Friendship West at no additional cost to you. All you have to do is visit smile.amazon.com and sign in with your Amazon credentials. Select Friendship West Baptist Church Dallas as your charity of choice and start shopping. Remember to check out smile.amazon.com to generate your donations to your church. For those of you who like to shop via the computer, here's a tip. Add the bookmark to make it easier to shop at smile.amazon.com. And if you're like me, you like using your app on your phone, simply open the Amazon shopping app, navigate to the main menu, that's the two bars, tap on the settings, and then select Amazon Smile. Once you do that, you can select Friendship West Baptist Church as your charity of choice, then follow the on-screen instructions to turn on Amazon Smile in the mobile app. Once Amazon Smile has been activated in your app, your future eligible app purchases will generate donations for Friendship West. Unfortunately, the tablet app is not yet supported, so use your phone or your computer. So remember, smile.amazon.com to generate donations for your church.
Friendship West family, many of you joined us last year when we served Thanksgiving meals to families in the southern Dallas community. With your help, we were able to bless a little over 2,000 families. Wow, what an impact your giving and volunteering accomplished. God's light was truly shown that day as recipients reached out letting us know how much the prayers, kind spirits, smiling faces, and fulfilling meal boxes blessed their lives. Well, we are at it again in collaboration with our partners in the Redbird Outreach Collaboration. Together, this year we will provide boxes to 3,000 families. We saw the need to increase the number as the need has continued to grow. Friendship West members who will be needing a Thanksgiving box will need to register on our website. Distribution for members only will be Friday, November 19th. Saturday, November 20th, distribution is open to all. We can only do this with your help. You can help us by 1, donating. We are responsible for collecting 6,000 cans of corn, 3,000 boxes of Jiffy cornbread, make sure it's Jiffy, and 3,000 packets of brown gravy mix. Donations can be dropped off or delivered to 616 West Keast Boulevard, Dallas, Texas 75224, or 2020 West Wheatland Road, Dallas, Texas 75232, anytime between October 3rd and November 7th. You can also help by volunteering. There are many opportunities to volunteer. We will need assistance the entire week with things such as loading and unloading, preparing boxes, distributing boxes and turkeys, and traffic control. For more information or to register, please visit www.faithformula.org or email me at gshellman@faithformula.org. Let's continue to be a blessing together.
I'm Peacock Proud and Honeymoon Happy to welcome you to another edition of Theology Matters. Theology matters so much that William Augustus Jones Jr., in his book entitled God in the Ghetto, which I read for the very first time as a junior at now defunct but never dead Bishop College. I was taking a Christian social ethics course. This book had just come out, and we had a selection of books to choose from. And check this, I chose this one because I was arrested. My attention was arrested by the subject, God in the Ghetto. That blew my mind. And in reading the book, and I'll talk more about it later on, but this is one of the things that was said that I've never forgotten. In the book, he says, a simple surface diagnosis of the system reveals a sick sociology based on a faulty anthropology, which emanates from a false theology. And so William Augustus Jones Jr. basically says that when you look at systemic oppression, and again, always bear in mind, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Your enemy is not someone who calls you the N-word. It's a system that treats you like the N-word. It's a system that basically says that some lives are valued or matter more than others. And so, according to William Augustus Jones, the system has been set up, here it is, by a false theology. And so we are convinced here at Friendship West, again, that theology matters. What you believe about God matters. As a matter of fact, it's essential for your mental health, because I add to what Dr. Jones said by simply saying a truthful theology will empower your psychology to overcome the sociology that is the result of this faulty anthropology. I just kind of made that up, to be honest, but seriously, I'm just letting you know that theology matters. And so we, during this year at Friendship West, and I thank Pastor Durr for framing what we do during these interviews, we lift up theology and how that frames, it shapes, it informs all that we do. And I am so excited, I can't even hide it, because tonight we have a sister who is amazing. She's anointed, she's an author, she's an activist, she is an attorney. Right now, she is giving leadership to the first of its kind Racial Justice Commission in the city of New York. And they've never done this before. Matter of fact, Dallas hadn't done it. Hint, hint. I don't know of any other city that has done this. And they tapped this brilliant, bold sister to give leadership to it. She has a resume that is outstanding. It's resplendent. She has done so much. She has made a profound and powerful difference. But we also know her at Friendship West as a living, breathing miracle with a spirit of joy. That's the title of her first book, entitled Count It All Pure Joy. She's a miracle. God blessed her. And we're just really honored to have the amazing Jennifer Jones Austin, political analyst, brilliant sister, true speaker to those in power, OM to the Jeezy. Y'all, let's welcome the amazing Jennifer Jones Austin. Jenny from the block, good to see you.
You got me speechless. You got me speechless. You know, every time I hear you speak, I'm just filled with joy and emotion just to hear you speak truth in ways that only you can. And then when you love on me the way that you do, I just, I become speechless. So I don't know, hopefully I'll get it back in a little bit. But right now I'm tongue-tied.
Oh, God bless you. Well, it's all true. I am just grateful to God for you, and I appreciate so much your witness as well as your work. And so we'll jump right in. This is the book right here. This is the book right here, God in the Ghetto, a prophetic word revisited. And so, Jen, I just want to begin with the question. Tell us about God in the Ghetto, the original, and what made you undertake the humongous task of revisiting this prophetic word.
So I'm going to jump in. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you that it is God in the Ghetto, a prophetic word revisited. And it says with 5 never before published sermons and contemporary responses. The reason I had to say that is because one of the response essays, there are 10 in total, but one of them was authored by my host, your host, our host for this evening, the great Reverend Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III. And he wouldn't tell you that, but I'm going to tell you that. He also would not tell you, and I'm going to tell you, that the reason this book has come into being, the reason that it has been republished in part, is because of his prodding, his pouring into me, his supporting me, beginning, goodness, I'd say maybe 5 years ago now, telling me that we needed to do this.
Wow.
So he gets some of the credit. You know that. You get some of the credit, Dr. Haynes. We wouldn't be here but for you. I have been involved in, I don't call myself a faith leader, but I am a leader of faith. And I've been leading the New York City-based Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies for nearly 10 years. It's an organization, a anti-poverty social policy and advocacy organization that works with better than 170 nonprofit human service organizations, mainly around the state of New York and some in other parts of other cities, but mainly in New York, that they in aggregate deliver a full array of services from childcare all the way up to senior services. I joined the organization in part because of my background in policy and legislation and advocacy, but also because this organization has a rooting in the faith community. And I've been wondering, where is the faith community in large part on issues of social justice? Right. We have soup kitchens and we have food pantries, which are critically important. We run clothes drives, making sure that people have coats on their backs in the dead of winter in colder places. But, where are we when it comes to raising the wage? Where are we when it comes to addressing issues of mass incarceration? Where are we when it comes to immigration issues? I found myself struggling to find churches other than Friendship West, and I'm being very honest, standing out there, speaking truth to justice, right? Speaking truth to power and bringing about justice. And so I began to wonder, where is the church? And one of the reasons that I joined and began leading the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies was to try to help the church find its place and space in policy and advocacy, rooting out structural racism. And what I began to find was that everywhere I went and talked with faith leaders about why they weren't engaged, they tell me that they didn't have the teaching in seminary about social justice. They tell me that it's just too hard trying to help the congregants, get food on their tables or help them find jobs. They just didn't have the time to do this work. And I kept on thinking, I guess as the daughter of William Augustus Jones Jr., who was like, you got to figure out how to do both, and you got to help people figure out how to keep food on the table while fighting the system, because the system is the one that's keeping them from having food on the table. I said, what would Dad be thinking in this moment, and what would he be saying? And so I revisited, and this is again with your prodding, I revisited God in the Ghetto, and what I realized was Dad was writing about the system. You talked about him writing about the system, revealing a sick sociology based on a faulty anthropology emanating from a false theology. Well, the system, as Dad describes it in God in the Ghetto, is a system of racism, capitalism, and militarism, all working in concert to continually oppress people of color. What Dad says is that this system is a construct. It's a fiction, if you will, but it operates as though it's the norm, it's the main. It was created by white supremacists in order to create a rationale and a justification for keeping persons of color, Black persons in particular, in a state of oppression. And what this book was helping me to do when I read it was to understand that racism is just one part of the three-legged stool, that racism is in place to actually, prop up this capitalist society of haves and have-nots. And you've got to create this false narrative using racism about who's entitled to have and who's not. And what Dad helped me to appreciate was that Christianity is like right at the center of it. That essentially beginning with slavery, that the white slave master used the Bible and used Christianity to suggest that Black persons, were not human. They were abhorrent, animalistic, that, they were heathen in their behavior, that the white evangelical community created the ghetto as a construct with a mindset to say these people belong over there, they're less than, and we can treat them as less than. And beginning to understand all this, I was like, wait a minute, this is a tool, right? This is knowledge. Dad used to say, gain knowledge, gain power. And I'm like, people need this knowledge. And what he was doing in this book, as you talked about, Dr. Haynes, he was being bold. He was speaking truth to power, and he was saying there is no greater power than God. And what he was saying is, I'm going to let people know that if you are with God, then you need to be speaking against these injustices, and I'm going to help you figure out how to claim the mantle, if you will, develop the knowledge base, the vernacular, and then go about doing the work that God has called you to do. So that's why I put it back out there.
Wow. Powerful testimony. And thank you. I was honored to be a part of the conversations about the book. I give all credit to you because you were the driving force who made this project happen. And, I'm really honored that you would allow me to write a chapter in this book. Dr. Jones preached for us here at Friendship West back in the 90s. And so it just means a lot now that his beloved Jenny from the block has carried on his legacy, not only in the writing of this book, but in the work that you do. You've shared with me something that's just absolutely amazing, and that is you've been tapped, as we shared earlier, to serve as the first leader of the first ever of its kind Racial Justice Commission there in New York City, big old New York City. How has, if any, this particular work informed your activism, your leadership on this commission? And tell us even about the Racial Justice Commission. Maybe Dallas can do it.
Oh, I am hoping that it is the first of many. And essentially the way that I've structured it and the way that I'm leading it, I'm hoping that it serves as an example. I'm doing a lot of documenting of, process, process development, build out, so that other people can come behind and follow it, should it prove to be effective. And it's going to be effective. It can't help but be effective.
Right.
Because I believe that God has ordained it and has purposed me in this moment to do this work. You asked me essentially how the book has informed my thinking about this work. So let me first just tell you the work is centered on deconstructing our New York City Charter, our New York City Constitution. Like the United States Constitution, states and localities have constitutions. They either call them constitutions, they call them charters sometimes. Ours is a charter, and essentially it lays out the laws of the land, the laws of New York City that govern access to power, access to goods and resources and capital, essentially it's the laws that speak to who holds power and roles and responsibilities of everybody from elected officials to everyday New Yorkers. What we're seeking to do is to identify in the charter those provisions that, like the Constitution, have helped to birth racism and to perpetuate it in the form of policies and institutions and practices. So very much like the United States Constitution, which essentially declared that Blacks once enslaved were 3/5 of a person. And then what we saw was that laws, rolled out from states and systems were built up, institutions were created that essentially played off of that. Blacks are 3/5 of a person. So we couldn't vote. And a lot of that was tied to the Constitution. What happens, as we've talked about and we're talking about throughout the land right now, we're in critical race theory, is that you have these charters, these constitutions that have embedded racism in the laws. And then what has happened is systems, institutions, policies, programs, practices have been built on top. So much to the point that it looks like you can't even actually maybe immediately detect racism in it because it just seems to be the norm. But really, racism is at its core. So this book here, there are things that Daddy wrote and said in the book that I feed on to help me in this work. One of the things that Dad wrote in the book was he said, the racist ascribes to God a posture of partiality predicated on pigmentation. And then the racist assigns to men their permanent places under the sun on the basis of that pigmentation. What Dad was saying is that the racists, the founders of this nation, the founders of states and localities, essentially ascribe to God a posture of partiality predicated on pigmentation. Essentially what they're saying is that God, they're using God and saying that God said white men shall have and Black persons shall not, that white people shall have privilege and be entitled and Black persons shall not. Right? And then they construct a society and a system that actually brings that into play perennially, unless we stop it. One of the other things that he said in the book that I always lean back on was he said, when sin becomes structured and inequity institutionalized, the resultant arrangement is ineluctably wicked and nefarious, for it denies others access to the tree of life. This is the continuing tragedy of America. The system is racist to the core, so deep and pervasive in the reality that its bitter fruit multiplies even without cultivation. That is critical race theory in part. And what Dad was saying is that when you create this system that foundationally is racist, you then begin to structure sin. Racism is a sin. To suggest that God has some people, that he has relegated to a place of being less than, that's a sin. And to treat your neighbor as less than is a sin. So essentially what our society has done is that it's structured sin in its laws, in its institutions, so much now that essentially it just repeats. And the racist or the people who live in the racist society are just living into this racism. So what you've got to do is you've got to deconstruct the system. You've got to weed out, you've got to gut out the racism. And that's what we're doing with the Racial Justice Commission. We're going into the charter and we're identifying those laws, those practices, those provisions that allow racism to be propped up. And we're going to gut them out and replace them with laws and provisions that bring about greater equity in power, in access, and an opportunity for every New Yorker with Blacks at the front of the line, if you will.
My. Powerful. Thank you. Whew. So, in
Am I saying too
essence,
much?
huh? You preaching.
Am I saying too much?
No, you preaching. So when you say, you're not a faith leader, but a leader, faith, I mean, listen, we know, my good friend, Bishop in New Jersey, told me how you preached for him a few weeks ago. So I feel a little jealous about that, and I'll make sure we get you on the calendar here at Friendship West. So thank you very much. But very seriously, I think it's important that we hear and see that model, because one of the things we keep talking about is the system that produces outcomes. It almost guarantees outcomes. So it's not that, certain communities are lazier or less than, but they've been set up by a system, and that system has literally become so enculturated that it's a part of the air we breathe, the schools we go to, the economy we find ourselves participating in. And so what you're doing is literally transforming. You're undoing a system and remaking it, transforming it so that the system works for everyone. So we're praying for you, for your leadership, for your work, because I think that's a model that the rest of the nation needs to piggyback on, and especially in this state, and I apologize to you and all of you in America for Texas and all that it's been doing, but that's neither here nor there right now, even though it is. What I want to ask you now is, given the State of the Union and the assault on black lives, politically, economically, and socially, what is the message of this prophetic word for us today?
So there's a section of the book where Dad talks about it's a chapter titled "The Involvement of Racistic Religion."
My Lord.
And
Yes.
in it, what he does is he speaks about how essentially religion, as I talked about just a second or two ago, has been used to essentially, by the white evangelical community to prop up this racist system, and how it is the responsibility of the Christian to essentially challenge that. And he talks a lot about the Black church's role. I want to read for everybody just a short clip of what he wrote. He said, essential to the carrying out of the prophetic function is a proper allusion. To say with Peter before the tribunal, we must obey God rather than any human authority. Such a stance may bring on a crucifixion, but without a crucifixion, there can be no resurrection. The ghetto is a creation of white America with its racist religion. And then what he goes on to say, if you allow me just a little bit more, is that all right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He says that essentially, wait, let me get this right. He says that God's strategy of human redemption works not from the top down, but from the bottom up.
Come on.
The political process is not synonymous with the divine strategy. Always with God, the victimizers are under judgment, while the victims are under mercy. More profoundly than anywhere else, God is at work in the low places of existence. Christ is God of the ghetto. For in the groanings of the ghetto, there is the quest for God, for truth, divine goodness, and divine liberating power. Those who exist under the heel of humanity and at the same time keep alive the vision of their God-appointed destiny are co-workers with God in the task of confronting the system. Remember, the system of race, capitalism, and militarism. So what Dad was saying here is that essentially, if you are, a Christian, and if you are engaged in the work of, lifting up and helping, bring others to salvation, then you've got to be engaged in the work of the social gospel. That you cannot just be preaching to those, about, individual redemption. You got to be teaching about societal redemption, the collective, the whole, and you've got to be calling out and challenging, as it puts it, in the spirit of God, the revolutionary, the systems that would suggest that God that God believes in and supports racistic religion. You've got to challenge that, and you've got to step up and be like God the revolutionary, Jesus the revolutionary. Go in these places that have been oppressed and marginalized and help those people to find hope and strength and renewal, and then speak truth to power and call out these systems of inequity. Deconstruct the system, confront it, deconstruct it, and then preach what God the revolutionary preached. Human redemption, collective redemption, and essentially uplift the kingdom, God's kingdom.
Thank you so much for that. And I love how you kept referring to God the revolutionary, because again, there is a chapter in the book, a sermon entitled God the Revolutionary. Theology matters. God as a revolutionary is not something that in my years at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, they never spoke of God as a revolutionary. So talk to me now about as you were, giving us this prophetic word, revisiting this prophetic word, how faith plays a role in what it is you do. Because one of the things that, just really excites me about your work is that you never have divorced what you do from your faith. Now, you don't wear it on your sleeve. You're not you're not out there saying, God said this, God said that. But it's evident in your witness and in your work that you are this woman of faith. And so talk to us about how faith informs your work, your social justice witness.
Mm-hmm. So there's so much to say there. I guess I begin with when you are the daughter and granddaughter and great-granddaughter of preachers who preached the gospel, the gospel of Jesus Christ, the gospel of, love thy neighbor and lift up and support and care for your neighbors, that God wants you to do the work of saving his kingdom. And that means being there and loving on your neighbors and lifting them up, and not just being centered on self. When you are raised in a household like that, then it becomes a part of who you are. When you're raised in a church like that, it becomes a part of who you are. I used to marvel as a little girl, every Sunday after service, when Dad was, addressing some of, I guess, like the affairs of the church, at the end of Sunday's worship experiences before we went home, I would sit at his desk while he was about talking with, persons who'd come to church, and maybe he was talking with the deacons or the trustees. I would sit at his desk, and maybe I shouldn't tell this, but I did. I would read the letters on his desk. I'm talking about being 7, 8 years old. And it always fascinated me how there was a letter that may have come from the mother who needed food and needed some money to pay her rent. There was the gentleman who was looking for a job and had just come out of prison and was having a hard time getting a job. And then there might have been a letter from the White House asking Dad to come and to sit in some conversation with the president. And I'm not exaggerating in the least. It was like, it was like the people who some would consider the least of these, and the people who our society would consider the highest in the pecking order. And Dad was dealing with all of them. And what always amazed me was that he didn't see any invitation as any greater or more significant than, an invitation that may have come from a mother saying, would you go see my son in prison, right? Or my daughter who's fallen on hard times, would you go take care of her? And so I think that in reading that and seeing how he was moving in and out and weaving, that became a part of who I was and who I am and how I think and move in the world. I'd also add that growing up as the daughter of William Augustus Jones and the daughter of Natalie Barclay Brown Jones, both of whom lived their passion and what I saw as their God-given purpose, I grew up believing that you're to find the purpose that God has given you and live it to the fullest. And so years ago, when I was in law school and I'd gone there not knowing what I wanted to do or be, but my uncle, who was an attorney, told me, go to law school. While you're there, you'll figure it out. I found myself one day searching for a law review no topic, and I happened upon a case of a young man who at the age of 16 killed his parents and was tried and convicted for murder. And at sentencing, the judge said, this young man has suffered so much physical and emotional abuse at the hands of parents that this kid should not be sent to prison, but rather should be given mental health supports. And all of a sudden, I grew to immediately understand that there are children in this nation who are struggling at the hands of their parents, and they need help and they need support. And I heard God said to me, I want you to work on behalf of my children who are most in need. Help me save, serve, and protect them. And so I found my purpose and I found my passion. And it was like the calling God had placed on my life. And so faith is it's all up in this. And then I'm just going to fast forward real quickly. And this story. When I got sick, when I was diagnosed with leukemia and given a 99% chance of death, and then given chemotherapy and survived beyond the weekend that they thought that I was going to die, I was diagnosed on Wednesday and put in a coma on Friday and told I was going to die in the next 48 hours. But God saw God's plans and I survived, but then I needed a transplant to survive the disease long term. when my sisters and my brother, my husband leading the way, and my mother, when they began working with churches across the nation to find me a bone marrow donor because I needed a transplant to survive the disease term. And Friendship West was one of the churches that stepped up immediately. And, First Lady Haynes stepped up and she did the work. And I love her and I thank her so much for that. And I'm still loving on her because of that. But, people around the nation, churches leading the way, begin leaning, kind of leaning in and helping to try to find me a donor. And ultimately what resulted was I didn't get a donor. More than 13,000 people came to the registry in 13 weeks. I didn't get a donor from that effort, but I saw how God was working because people across the nation who were also in need of donors began getting donors, transplanters, from people who came forward to help me. So I saw how God was working in the midst of my suffering and that my suffering had purpose. I saw how community was taking care of community. If we just let God lead the way and do what we're supposed to do. And so when you ask me how my faith manifests in all of this, it's like at the foundation, it's at the center, because I see time and time and time again how if you just let go and you let God and then you lean in and you go with God, then he'll define the path and you get to walk it. And in so doing, for me, it's like walking in my power, walking in my God-given power, in my purpose, essentially to do the work that he's called me to do, to work on behalf of his children who are in need and their families, to take care of community. I once heard my daddy preach a sermon, and at the end of it, he crescendoed by saying, don't you know God didn't save you for your sake? He saved you for the kingdom's sake. And so faith is at the center of everything I do because it is of God. And I'm just blessed. I'm immensely blessed to know what God has purposed me to do and to have heard him and to have had my mind clear at the time he was speaking to me, because I thought I was going to be a corporate lawyer making tons and tons of money. But as Daddy said, God will provide, so I'm all right, right? I'm doing okay. But it was faith at that core and leaning in and listening to what God had for me, and then seeking to be obedient. So that's how faith plays.
Wow, powerful. I love that. So let's go back to that chapter, God the Revolutionary. Let's discuss that. Again, theology matters. Let's discuss God the Revolutionary. How do you see God as a revolutionary? How did your dad see God as a revolutionary? And how is God the Revolutionary at work even today as state after state is following the path of Texas and engaging in voter suppression laws? We're in a fight against fascism. Where is God the Revolutionary? What would your dad say about God the Revolutionary? What does Jennifer Jones Austin say about God the Revolutionary?
So I'm going to read something because I'm going to give you exactly what Dad said, and then I'm going to talk to you about how I think about it. So Dad says in the chapter, God the Revolutionary, he says, listen, do you hear what he says? Speaking of God, every valley shall be exhausted and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight and the rough places plain. Isaiah 4:40. Do you see the picture, Dad writes? Look at the portrait. The first thing I see is inequality. In fact, that's all I see, inequality, disparity, glaring gaps. It's a scene of unevenness, valleys here and mountains there, crooked places and rough places. That's inequality, that's injustice, that's sin. And God's not discussing geography or geology. He's not describing the landscape or the rock formations. He's not speaking as a highway engineer. No, God's not that interested in rolling hills and sinking valleys. Dips and curves in the terrain don't disturb ultimate power. But he is disturbed by that scene where some dwell on the mountain at the expense of those who suffer in the valley. He's deeply disturbed by those systems which crown the greedy and crush the needy. God is concerned about the dips, the curves, and the ruts in human nature, seen in those who grow without giving and receive without returning. And he says to Isaiah and to us, inequity is under judgment. That arrangement will be changed. The valleys will be lifted by the leveling of the mountains. The crooked will be straight. The rough places will be made smooth. Now that's revolutionary talk. That's revolutionary behavior. Okay? So what Daddy was saying is that God was saying that, I'm not for and I'm not down with all just essentially continually to construct this system of some having and some not. And I will bring you to your knees. You will be held accountable. You will be judged for denying and depriving my children, what I said it should be for them, because essentially you are taking from them or seeking to keep from them what I have for all of you. So you will be judged. And God, the revolutionary, is saying, I'm going to turn this right side up. And I'm going to work with the people, beginning with those on the bottom. Daddy talks in another sermon that's titled From the Mud Hut to the Big House. Right. He talks about how God used Moses, right? Yeah. And God took Moses from the mud hut and brought him into the big house. He took somebody, right? He talks about how Jesus was born in a manger. He didn't have Jesus's parents come through the big, Ritz-Carlton or the Mandarin Hotel back in that day, but rather they were, they had to stay in a manger, like like they come through the back door, as he talks about it. He talks about it as being backdoor divinity, right? Right. And what he's doing is helping us all to appreciate. We don't have to sit high. We don't have to be in the White House. Right? Dad would even say that the White House is not big, sitting high. Daddy used to say all the time, go out and vote on Sunday. Go out. He'd say to the people on the Sunday before election, go out and vote. Vote for the person you believe to be the best candidate. But don't get it twisted. Come Wednesday morning, not much in America will have changed. You still have to do the work. And so what he's saying is that we have to be like God, the revolutionary. God was showing us at every turn how he was throughout the Bible. We see story after story, how God was working in people, ordinary people like you and me, doing extraordinary things, people changing the system, again, speaking truth to power. And so what that means for me in this moment is that little old me is going to try to do whatever I can to bring about racial justice in New York City and have whatever I'm doing serve as a blueprint for the nation if I can. Little old me is going to try to help bring back out this book that is a tool for people who want to do revolutionary work. Because in the book, it even says, if you are to be like God, then you have to engage in the work of being a revolutionary. And in the book, he gives you the tools to do that. So for me, we all can be revolutionary. We don't have to be sitting with like large bank accounts with big positions. We don't have to be sitting in the Senate or in the White House or in the House of Representatives. Our responsibility as essentially Christians, disciples of Christ, is to be like God, the revolutionary, Jesus, the revolutionary, going wherever injustice is the game, and like essentially upending that game, challenging the systems wherever and however we can. I don't know, you got me getting excited.
Yeah, listen, you were telling the truth, the liberating truth about God, the revolutionary. Right. So I want to piggyback on and just ask you to continue what you were saying, because someone is listening and they're saying, you are the great Jennifer Jones Austin and you are doing this great work. What can I do in light of everything that is happening in this nation, in this world? What can I do in my life to be an instrument of God, the revolutionary? What is it that I can do?
So I don't want to, this is going to sound a little silly when I say this. I don't want to plug the book, but at the same time, I think there's value in the book, because what I believe what Dad does is he helps people to find themselves and to understand this system that we have been held captive to for centuries. One of our very good friends and someone who I know is like a brother to you and has been good to me is Dr. Kevin Cosby out of Louisville, Kentucky. Oh, yeah. I was talking with him the other day, and he said to me, that when he was young, that God in the ghetto essentially helped him to find his manhood, which I thought was really interesting. He said that God in the ghetto helped him to appreciate that, that he had a voice, that he has a voice, and that this system that would make him believe that he is less than is essentially it's not God's system, but it is the work of, essentially people doing evil, engaged in sin, and that, and that he was more than what this white oppressive society was causing him to believe that he was and could be. Another person, someone who writes in the book, Reverend Michael Warren, tells the story of having been a freshman at Morehouse College,
Right.
and his father having given him the book, and him wondering why. And in his first week at Morehouse College, just circumstances caused him to pick up the book and read it, and all he could think to himself was, where did this person come from who is speaking so boldly and declaratively about this racist society? What the book does is it helps you to understand that, racism is more than your neighbor doesn't like you, or your child's teacher doesn't, is trying to act like your kid can't learn and your child is incapable. What the book helps you to understand and appreciate is that this is a system that was created to keep you in a state of oppression, to actually get your mind thinking that you are less than, to construct economies, outside of your neighborhood to make you feel that your neighborhood isn't worthy, that your schools and that your schools and your hospitals are dilapidated and broken down, that your housing is dilapidated and broken down because you can't keep a thriving community, rather than helping you see, they're actually withholding the resources intentionally to keep your community in a state of despair. They're withholding the resources in the form of both funding and quality teachers and quality supports to keep your schools from being what they should be, to keep your hospitals from being what they should be. And in doing so, making you think that we can't get ahead, making us think we can't get ahead because we can't get our act together in our own community. Rather, what they're doing is they're intentionally withholding the resources so that it just looks like, the ghetto, the community, the low-income communities, are heavily concentrated with poor people who just don't have the wherewithal to do better for themselves. It's the system that they've created, that they over-surveil, right? That they over-police to then create a narrative that this community has to be surveilled. It has to be over-policed. And they do less policing in the white community because then it reinforces the narrative when you look and you say, well, where's the crime occurring? The crime is occurring in the places that they are surveilling and that they're, doing the arresting. The crime is happening over in the other parts of town. They're just not over there. But what it does is that it then perpetuates and reinforces this narrative that we then internalize, that makes us think that we are less than. What the book does is it helps you to understand how it's all by design. And as Daddy said, as I said before, once you gain knowledge, you gain power. Why is it that today we've got this debate around critical race theory?
Go there.
Because the people who are in power know that if the Black children learn their history and they learn this nation's history, then they're going to realize it's not just my teacher, it's not just my neighbor. Their parents are going to realize that, and they're going to wake up and say, wait a minute. So this system's been working against me intentionally, and now they're going to become revolutionaries, and they're going to work to deconstruct it. And in turn, the people in power are concerned that that little white child, and forgive me for just calling it that way, but that little child is going to sit there and be like, wait a minute, I'm not smarter, I'm not better. And now that child, that child's psyche, that child's sense of self and self-worth is now going to be the one that's devalued and diminished. And now she or he is not going to walk around thinking that that they have more and they're entitled and they're privileged because they're better. And so what will happen with critical race theory, if it's taught, is that it's going to change minds. It's going to empower the Black child's mind, and it's going to disempower the white child's mind. And what this book does is it helps you to understand what this system is all about and how it works in that manner. So then you get power, you gain knowledge, and you gain power. So the first thing that I think people need to do is they need to be reading. They need to understand critical race theory. They need to read books like this. They need to read, other books as well. I think, Caste is a great book that people should read. There are other books that have been written that are critically important. I'm thinking of quite a few right now. One of them is even a book titled Losing the Race by John McWhorter, where he talks about how even we as a Black people sometimes center more on the end goal. We center on getting the job, as education as a means to an end, rather than understanding that we need to be educating ourselves and developing our minds critically, because otherwise we're going to lose our race, because they're counting on us not continually educating ourselves. So we need to continually educate ourselves. We're talking a lot about creating more civics engagement work in the schools. We need to go back to helping our people, like maybe through congregations, understand the importance of civics, so that people can understand why voting matters and understand how this democracy that my daughter Kennedy says ain't really a democracy, because we don't get to vote on everything. We just get to vote on the people who are supposed to go and represent us. And then very often they turn around and they don't. But we get to understand how the system works. We grow to understand it if we understand civics. So gaining knowledge is gaining power. And then I would say it's building these social justice ministries in our churches, like Friendship, like you have at Friendship West. And centering, I'm going to tell you, not just on the food pantries, not just on the soup kitchens, but on the policy, the legislation, and then going farther to the structural rooting, to the core of the problem.
Thank you for saying that. There's so many ways I want to go right now. I got to do this because you're trying to be shy. The book is God in the Ghetto, a Prophetic Word Revisited. Jennifer Jones Austin, tell this audience, how can they get this phenomenal book? And let me just say this book, Dr. Jones was so cold. This book was, from a faith perspective, dealing with critical race theory before the late, great Dr. Derek Bell had even coined it. That's how ahead of his time this man was, but still right on time. So again, I'm sorry, how do you get this book, Jennifer?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Nobles or order it at Barnes & Nobles. Or you can go to judsonpress.com, and Judson Press is the publisher of the book, and I believe they're offering a 20% discount on it. One of the things that you and I have talked about is how eerily relevant the book is still today. It was published first 42 years ago, and it's I guess it's both fascinating and eerily disturbing that it's still so relevant today, because racism is still so alive. Dad wrote in the book, one of my most favorite lines is when he says that, this is when he first wrote it 42 years ago. He said, 116 years after slavery, and I guess today that's 158 years. He said, so 158 years after slavery, if you bring it forward, Blacks have freedom without finance. So that speaks to the racial wealth gap. He said, access without assets, right? And, we don't have money to save for a rainy day, as COVID, laid bare. So freedom without finance, access without assets, which is tantamount to existence without equity. Freedom without finance, access without assets, which is tantamount to existence without equity. He called it. And it's still the case.
Called it. And that's exactly where we are. One of the things we're doing at Friendship West, right now we're in the midst of 100 days of buying black. And the idea is not to end it after 100 days, but to create a habit of building Black wealth, of having a consciousness when it comes to using our resources. Of course, that's one way, but what Dr. Jones was talking about was dealing with these systems so that in the state of Texas, even though Blacks, and I just found this out recently that Texas, we have more Blacks in our state than any state in the country. No other state has the population of Black people like the state of Texas. And yet, Jennifer, systemically, Black businesses get less than 2% of procurement opportunities from the state of Texas. That's a policy issue. That's structural, right. That's systemic. One of the things that you were saying that I really want to just dig a little deeper in, talk a little bit more, because church ministry has often been confined to acts of charity, right. Feeding the hungry, as opposed to dealing with systems that create hunger. And it's good to feed the hungry. Go ahead, let's do that. Oscar Romero said, though, if I feed the hungry, you call me a saint. If I question why they're hungry, you call me a communist. And so the church has been, in too many instances, complicit because we comfort our consciences by engaging in acts of charity as opposed to doing the hard, long work of fighting for justice and redoing these systems. What do you believe we can do in a practical way to start getting our churches more involved in fighting for justice, recreating these systems?
So the first thing, let me just say that, I'm right there with you. Some people say charity versus justice. I talk about, I ask nonprofit human service organizations all the time, are you centered on the work of alleviating the burdens of the effects of poverty, or are you committed to working towards the eradication of poverty? A recently made friend by the name of Michael McAfee at Policy Link, based in Oakland, California, talks about relief versus liberation. And he says, it's okay for some of you to be about the work of relief, but some of us got to be about the work of liberation. And I'm okay if you need to do your relief work, but we need to be, in the main centered on liberation. And so what I believe that looks like for churches is kind of a both and approach. We're not going to leave our brothers and sisters without food and without clothing and without shelter as we fight systems of inequity. We've got to figure out how to do both. But what it really comes down to is being committed to being bold to do that systems work. The challenge that some churches have, not all churches, but some churches have, is that they've gotten too entangled, if you will, with the electives. With the political powers, and they're afraid that if they challenge those authorities, they're going to give up some of that that comfort that they've come to know. For some people, it's that they've got resources that they're dependent on for basic programs that they're running, but you're not doing God's work if you're simply just kind of towing the line and just going along with what the system has done in terms of exacting us, or essentially confining people to certain places in our society based on race and class. You're not doing God's work. And so I think the first thing that churches have to do is to wrestle with that tension and determine for themselves, are they really doing the social gospel work if they're just feeding people? They're not. They're not, because that's not what God was talking about. So you got to wrestle with that, and then you've got to develop kind of the muscle to say, we're going to do both and relief and liberation work. We're going to do poverty eradication and poverty relief work. We're going to do charity and we're going to do justice, and we're going to develop that muscle. But a lot of it starts with people seeing themselves as being revolutionary in nature and not just being kind of like pacified by the status quo. It's hard to say to people exactly how you do it other than gaining that knowledge and understanding that God doesn't expect us to do it all, but God does expect us to do our parts. And doing our parts is upending these injustices that plague our people.
Say that, say that. The book is God in the Ghetto, a prophetic word revisited, edited by the incomparable Jennifer Jones Austin. Jenny, I got a text from Darren Sands. He said, you and Jennifer Jones Austin have such a good way of talking about these issues. Y'all need a BET show. So thank you, Darren. We may have to work on that. But listen, very seriously, you can get the book on Amazon, at Barnes & Nobles. You can also get it judsonpress.com, where you get a 20% discount. I have to say, I did write a chapter in here. It's called In the Name of the God of Justice. And listen, I'm proud to be a part of this great work. Michael Eric Dyson has done the foreword. A lot of the names you know, they have contributed to this book. And what Jennifer did that was just a blessing. And she and I had some issues, but she again prevailed as the wisest one. And that is, she added 5 of his sermons that were previously unpublished. I have a favorite sermon of Dr. Jones called The Morning Train. And I pleaded with her, please, baby, please put this in the book. And it didn't make the book. But when I read the 5, I was, okay, so yeah, I got to give you that. But let me tell you something. The 5 you found, let me just say this right quick. One of the things that blows my mind in one of the 5 new sermons, can't think of the name of it right now, but Dr. Jones, before Dr. King came out against the war in Vietnam, and you know it was unpopular when Dr. King did, Dr. Jones, 2 years before, came out against the war in Vietnam and diagnosed the problem of this country as it relates to militarism, racism, and the greed of capitalism. And so it's just, I mean, there's so much about this that is historic.
The flag and the cross, a lesson on loyalty.
Boom. That's it. That's it. So please, this book will bless you. It will bless anybody you know who is unconscious, that needs to wake up, and those who are conscious and need more information to empower them. This is the book right here, God in the Ghetto. Again, edited by the phenomenal woman herself, Jennifer Jones Austin. Jennifer Jones Austin, thank you so much for being you. Thank you so much for your work. We're praying for you and the Racial Justice Commission, and we look forward to that being replicated across this nation, because God knows we desperately need it for such a time as this. We pray for you and we thank God for you.
And I thank you for blessing me with this opportunity and just being the light and the inspiration that so many of us look to do this work. You're leading in the way that I believe God desires, and I just draw so much inspiration from you. So I thank you, not just for this moment, but for all that you do.
Bless you, bless you. Please give my love to your husband, my wonderful Kennedy, your baseball playing son, as well as your queenly mother, who I have so much love and respect for. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Love you.
Love you too. Listen, we want to, at this time, extend this opportunity for you. If you want to get to know this God in the ghetto, this God who hangs out in the hood for our liberation and salvation, if you want to get to know this God who loves you unconditionally, this God who has stamped God's image on you right now, you can dial that number right there, 469-498-0210, and you can accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Liberator and connect with God, the revolutionary. So go ahead, dial that number, 469-498-0210, And we have prayer warriors. I promise you, they are connected with this God, the revolutionary. They will pray for you. And I promise you, you will be blessed. So go ahead. If you feel at this time this need to connect with God, the revolutionary, Christ, our resurrected revolutionary, do that right now. And then you may say, hey, I got that part together, but I just love this kind of church ministry. If you'd like to be a part of this church family, listen, we'd love to have you. I'd love to serve as your pastor. So go ahead, dial that number, 469-498-0210, and we'll be happy to welcome you to our church family, even in these virtual spaces. God bless you and God keep you. Now it's offering time. It's offering time. After all of that, I know you want to give to the God, the revolutionary, who so generously and lovingly gives to you. And so please, you know how we do. You can text to give. That's text FWBC to that number, 972-200-9419. Of course, if you have the Givelify app, search out Friendship West, and you can give through that safe vehicle. Or if you give online, you already are on our website. All you got to do is just follow the prompts on the screen, and you can give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And of course, the FWBC app. And there are those of you old school, listen, I love you. I thank God for you. You can mail it, or just do like my mama, bring it on up here. That's 2020 West Wheatland, Wheatland Road, Dallas, Texas, 75232. God bless you and God keep you. Listen, one more time, since I messed up Sunday. No, two more times. I'll do it again Sunday. Happy birthday to every October born baby. God bless you. May this be the best birthday you've had so far, only to be exceeded by your next one. So God bless you. Happy birthday. Happy anniversary to all of you who were married during this outstanding month of October. Please don't forget to register and share with us your Buying Black, because we are trying to build our wealth, build our community. We're making a boss economic move. 100 days of Buying Black and the 100th commemoration of the Tulsa Massacre. So go ahead, check in and report your successful Buying Black week. Submit your total dollar amount online, friendshipwest.org/buyingblack100. Please do that. And we look forward to what God is going to do through this effort. You know, we got folk all over the country who've let us know that they're participating in this effort. So go ahead and do that. And then mark your calendar for November the 7th. November the 7th, listen, it's a preview of coming attractions. We're going to have a family reunion worship service here at Friendship West at 10 o'clock a.m. on the grounds. We're going to have a tent, be open air. There'll be, you know, the side will be open, but the tent will cover us. And then we're going to have parking, where if you want to park and watch it on the big screen, you can have those options. Or of course, if you want to remain virtual, bottom line is we're providing an opportunity for us to come together on Sunday, November the 7th. I can't wait to see y'all. So please mark your calendar and make sure that you are here at 2020 West Wheatland Road. And then keep on praying, because we are looking forward to December 31st, watch night. We're going to say goodbye to this year, and we're going to reopen our facility, and we all coming back together. And so we're looking forward to that. Those of you, of course, in the DFW Metroplex, that's, of course, for you. Those who want to fly in, my DC family that likes to fly in like you did for the church anniversary, those are the dates. So please mark them, and if you can make it, you know we'll be glad to see you. If you can't, tune in, because we'll make sure that we minister to our worldwide family. God bless you God keep you. Jennifer Jones Austin, thank you again. God in the Ghetto. Please get it. It will bless your life. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord cause God's face to shine on you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up the light of God's countenance upon you and grant you peace. Go now in the power of God, of God's Holy Spirit, knowing God is a revolutionary. So you should be too. In Jesus' name, peace.
We praise God for this impactful experience and for your joining us during it. For all of you who joined as visitors, you can share that you were here. Please do that by taking time to text FWVIZ to the number 28950. And for those of you who are saying, hey, I want this time that I'm visiting to be the last time I'm a visitor, you can join us. Here's how you do that. Join us by calling the number 469-498-0210 or email us at joinus@friendshipwest.org. When you email your first name, your last name, and your cell number, and we will get back with you. We're so excited that you are here. Until next time, blessings on you.
Friendship West Baptist Church.